Hello everyone, welcome to another lecture with me in my channel Biology with Madhuparna. Today's topic is structure of DNA. So we will be talking about the basic topics of DNA from which usually questions comes in NET-GATE or any university level exams. So let's start. So first we will be reading about the basic structure of DNA. So the most important feature of DNA is that it is usually composed of two polynucleotide chains twisted around each other in the form of a double helix. The second point is the backbone of each strand of the helix is composed of alternating sugar and phosphate residues. The bases project inward but are accessible through the major and minor groove. So now DNA is basically composed of four types of bases and they are A, T, G, C, where A stands for adenine, T stands for thymine, G stands for guanine and C stands for cytosine. So usually, A always binds with T with the help of two hydrogen bonds, whereas G always make bond with C with the help of three hydrogen bonds. And cytosine and thymine are pyrimidines and guanine or adenine are known as purines. In case of RNA, instead of thymine, uracil will be present there and it is also a pyrimidine base. So next we will be moving on to the difference between nucleoside and nucleotide. So what is nucleoside? We will look into the definition of nucleoside now. So nucleoside is a structural subunit of nucleic acids consisting of a molecule of sugar linked to a nitrogen containing organic ring compound. In the most important nucleosides, the sugar is either ribose or deoxyribose and the nitrogen containing compound is either a pyrimidine, which is cytosine thymine, or uracil in case of RNA, and a purine, which is adenine or guanine. So basically a nucleoside consists of a pentose sugar and a nitrogenous base. So now we will be looking at the nucleotide definition. So what is a nucleotide? A nucleotide is the basic building block of nucleic acids. RNA and DNA are polymers made of long chains of nucleotides. A nucleotide consists of a sugar molecule, either ribose, which present in RNA, or deoxyribose, which is present in DNA, attached to a phosphate group and a nitrogen containing base. So basically, nucleotide consists of a pentose sugar, a nitrogen base and a phosphate group. So our next topic is what is polynucleotide and the definition of DNA. First we will be explaining like what is polynucleotide, then we will be coming into the definition of DNA. So a polynucleotide molecule is a biopolymer composed of 13 or more than 13 nucleotide monomers covalently bonded in a chain. DNA, which stands for deoxyribonucleic acids, and RNA, which stands for ribonucleic acids, are the examples of polynucleotides with distinct biological functions. So next is what is the definition of DNA. So DNA, which stands for deoxyribonucleic acid, is a molecule composed of two polynucleotide chains that coil around each other to form a double helix carrying genetic instructions for the development, functioning, growth and reproduction of all known organisms and many viruses. DNA and RNA, which stands for ribonucleic acids, both are nucleic acids. Alongside proteins, lipids, and complex carbohydrates such as polysaccharides, nucleic acids are one of the four major types of macromolecules that are essential for all known forms of life. The two DNA strands are known as polynucleotides as they are composed of simpler monomeric units called nucleotides. So that was the definition of DNA. So next we will be talking about some experiments which helped us to come into our current definition, current understanding of DNA. So first we will be starting with the experiment which proved that DNA was the genetic material, which was done by Dr. R. Griffith. So let's start. His hypothesis was material in dead bacterial cells can transform living bacterial cell. So first we will be talking about what experiment he have done. We will be looking into the method. So actually he ran four different set of tests. So what he did, Dr. F. Griffith, he used the bacterium Diplococcus pneumoniae, which causes usually pneumonia in mammals. And Griffith noticed that this bacteria has two types of strains. First strain is S type, which actually is capsulated and form smooth colony on a synthetic medium, and the second type of strain is art type, which is non-capsulated and form rough colony on synthetic medium. So he selected both of these strains and carried on his experiment. So in the first set of experiment, he injected a mice with live S strain, and as a result the mice died. So he concluded that this S strain is a virulent or pathogenic strain. In the next set of testing, what he did, he took the R strain and injected into the mice, but to his surprise that mice lived. And from this experiment he concluded that R type is non-virulent and non-pathogenic. In the third set of test, he heat killed the S strain bacteria and injected into the mice, and the mice lived. In the last set of test, what he did, he mixed the heat killed S strain bacteria with living R strain bacteria. Surprise, this time the mice died. Griffith concluded that it was because a phenomenon which is not mutation but transformation. What happened in this reaction? The DNA from heat killed A strain was transformed in the living R strain bacteria, which made that R strain into virulent or pathogenic, which further affected the mice and caused in the death of the mice. So here from this he concluded that DNA is the genetic material because of which that mice was dead. So we will be moving on to our next experiment. Our next experiment is of Avery, MacLeod and McCarty, who actually completed this Griffith's experiment. And their hypothesis was the genetic material of the cell is either protein or nucleic acids. So they were testing like which is the main genetic material, is it nucleic acid or protein? To test that, they have done 4 tests. In the first test, they used the mixture of R-type bacteria plus the carbohydrate of S-type bacteria. As a result, they got R-type bacteria. In the second set, they used R-type bacteria plus the protein of the S-type bacteria as a mixture, and they again got the R-type bacteria. In the third set of tests, they used R-type bacteria plus DNA of the S-type bacteria, but this time they got the S-type bacteria as a result. And the last and the fourth set, they used R-type bacteria plus DNA of S-type of bacteria plus deoxyribonuclease. Basically, deoxyribonuclease cleave the DNA from double-stranded to single-stranded. So, as the DNA is cleaved, this time it resulted in R type of bacteria instead of S type of bacteria, instead of having DNA in the solution. So, what they concluded? They concluded that transformation requires DNA, hence the genetic material of the cell is DNA. So, this is how they have completed the Griffith's experiment. So, our next experiment is of Hershey-Chase experiment, which was done by Alfred Hershey and Martha Chase. So we will be looking into this experiment. It looks a little bit difficult, but let me explain it to you in a very easier way. So we'll start. So let's look into this Hershey-Chase experiment. So they did this experiment using bacteriophage. So we all know that bacteriophage is a kind of virus which attacks the bacteria. So what they did, they took a bacteriophage, and in case DNA was labeled with radioactive P32 and protein coat was left non-radioactive. So we all know DNA in nucleotide a phosphate group is present, so they replace that phosphate with the radioactive P32 phosphate. Now what they did, after replacing the phosphate with radioactive P32, they allowed the bacteriophage to replicate by exposing it to the sample of bacteria. And after that, after some time, the sample was chilled to arrest the growth. And then after that, the sample was shaken vigorously for several minutes, and this process helps to separate the phage coat from the surface of the bacteria. Now the sample from there is taken to centrifuge very quickly. What will be the result after this centrifugation? The bacterial cells will come in the bottom of the tube, and the phage particles will be available in the supernatant. And now this supernatant was tested for the radioactivity, and they found that in supernatant the radioactivity was present. This was their first set of experiment. In the second set, what they have done? In the second set, they followed the same procedure, but in this case, they used S35, which is sulfur 35, to coat the protein coat of that bacteriophage. And again they followed the same procedure, like they allowed the bacteriophage to replicate, and then they took the sample after some arresting the growth after some time, and they centrifuged the sample, and this time radioactivity was present in the pellet. And as we have read earlier that protein coats are present in the pellet. From this experiment, Hersey and Chase concluded that the genetic material that is being passed on is DNA, not protein, as previously was accepted. So this is one of the famous experiments. Next slide, we will be talking about Chargaff's rule. So what was this experiment and what are the rules he have given us? So Chargaff and his students collected numerous DNA samples for various organisms using the fairly new technique of pepper chromatography, and they proceeded to separate DNA. Then the DNA was subjected to acid to hydrolyze the phosphodiester bonds, as it would cause a nucleophilic attack on the bond and result in the backbone breaking up. Once the phosphodiester bonds were broken, then the individual nucleotides would then be separated and free to analyze using UV spectroscopy. So from his experiment, what he concluded, his conclusion was the number of adenine bases is equal to the number of that of thymine bases, and number of cytosine bases is equal to that of the number of guanine bases. So the ratio of AT and ratio of GC is the ratio of A plus T plus G plus C is equal to 100%. And his second conclusion was the proportion of A is to T and G is to C holds true for both strands of the DNA. So this was Chargaff's rule. In our next slide, we will be talking about Franklin's DNA X-ray crystallography. So Rosalind Franklin, who played a big part in the discovery of the DNA structure, with the help of her findings, we all know that Watson and Crick finally gave us the actual DNA model. So we will look into the findings of her. DNA helical structure was composed of 2 strands. Then she established that DNA diameter was similar throughout. She calculated that the one turn was equal to 34 Armstrong, and there are 10 bases per twist, and phosphates are on the outside, and DNA always forms a helix. Next, we will be coming into Watson and Crick model of DNA. So Watson and Crick made the first model of DNA molecule based on its X-ray picture made by Rosalind Franklin. The model explained that the DNA molecule has the shape of helix. It is composed out of 2 antiparallel strands interconnected with the weak hydrogen bonds. Each of these strands is composed of nucleotides, while nitrogenous bases are near the center of the DNA molecule. Nucleotides that make up one strand are interconnected with covalent bonds. According to the Chargaff's rule, adenine always binds with the thymine of the other strand, while guanine binds with cytosine that is a part of the antiparallel strand. Our next topic is some important points about the DNA. First, we will be looking at the absorbance property of DNA. So both DNA and RNA molecule exhibit maximum UV absorbance at a wavelength of 260 nanometer. So why 260 nanometer? Purine and pyrimidine is composed of heterocyclic rings that have a de-localized electron, which is a pi electron. The presence of pi electron explains why DNA and RNA's maximum absorbance is at 260 nanometer. In addition, there is a difference between lambda max of double-stranded DNA and single-stranded DNA. About that, we will be talking in our later slides. So next point is orientation. DNA molecules are asymmetrical. Such property is essential in the presence of DNA replication and transcription. Right-handed helix are energetically more favorable due to the less steric hindrance between the side chains and the backbone. And our last point is, what are the forces involved in the DNA helix? The DNA double helix is held together by 2 main forces. First one is hydrogen bonds between the complementary base pairs inside the helix, as we have read earlier that A pairs with T with the help of 2 hydrogen bonds and G pairs with C with the help of 3 hydrogen bonds. And one more force is van der Waals-based stacking interaction. Next, we will be looking into the types of DNA. As we know, there are three types of DNA: A form, B form, and Z form. So we will be looking into some of the aspects of these three type forms of DNA, and we will compare them. First, we will be talking about helical sense. So for B form of DNA, it is right-handed. For A also it is right-handed, but for Z form of DNA, it is left-handed. Next is major groove. In both A and B form of DNA, major groove is present while it is absent in the Z form of DNA. Next is base pair per helical turn. In B form it is 10.5 base pairs, in A form it is 11 base pairs, and in Z form it is 12 base pairs. Next point is glycosyl bond conformation. For B and A it forms anti, whereas for Z form of DNA it forms anti for pyrimidines and it forms syn for purines. Our next point is helix rise per base pair. For B form it is 3.4 Armstrong, for A form it is 2.6 Armstrong, and for Z form it is 3.7 Armstrong. Next is base tilt. For B form it is 6 degree, for A form it is 20 degree, and for Z form it is 7 degree. Next point is structure. As you can see in this picture, there is a difference between all the forms, but we basically refer to the B form mostly. Our next slide is about some important terms related to DNA. So let's look at some important terms which usually comes in the university exams and or national level like NET-GATE exams. So first we will be talking about the quart half. What is quart half? The product of Co, which is the original concentration of denatured DNA, and the T, time in seconds, giving a useful index of denaturation, DNA renaturation. Quart half is the value when 50% renaturation has occurred, which can be used to estimate the length of a unique DNA in a sample. So quart half actually it is the value in which one double-stranded DNA, it is halfway renatured and halfway it is denatured. So that is quart half. Next we will be coming to quart curve. It is a curve, it is a sigmoid curve which can be characterized by the quart half value, the point where half of the DNA is still stranded. Next point is Tm. What is Tm? The temperature of melting is known as Tm. It is defined as the temperature at which 50% of the double-stranded DNA is changed to single-stranded DNA. The higher the melting point, the greater the guanine cytosine content of the DNA. So if GC content is high for that particular DNA, Tm will be high, and if GC content is low for that particular DNA, Tm value will be less. So next we will be coming to what is hypochromic shift and what is hyperchromic shift. So basically hypochromic shift is the reduction in the absorption of ultraviolet light as complementary single strands of DNA unite to form duplexes. So when a DNA from single stranded, it starts to form duplex, then absorption of that particular DNA will decrease. This reduction is called hypochromic shift, whereas hyperchromic shift is the increase in the absorbance because of the denaturation of DNA. If it is subjected to some heat or alkaline conditions, this shift is caused by basically the disruption of the hydrogen bonds of each DNA duplex to yield a single stranded structure. So that's it for today, guys. I hope I was able to make this whole chapter easy for you to understand. Thank you for watching my video. Please, if you like my video, share with your friends, give a like. Please do comment and don't forget to subscribe my channel. Thank you.